Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is Joe, and joining me this week is
I'm Cody.
Cody
That was my
Fleming
tribute to Joe and his lame
doing
ass intros.
doing his best Joe Janka impression. Just the two of us here today, so hopefully we'll be able to keep it exciting for y'all.
Woo!
Wanted to start off as usual, or at least as we have been on the past several episodes, by just briefly talking about what we've been up to lately. Um, I honestly haven't been up to a whole lot new. We're still kind of working our way through some of the shows I've mentioned before, Magicians, Better Call Saul, whatever. One thing I did want to give a quick shout out to is we watched a movie recently that I'd never heard of before that we just stumbled on Amazon Prime Video.
Is it Titanic?
No, it's called
Titanic 2?
Uncle Frank.
Nope.
Yeah, never heard of it.
Is it about
But
Frankenstein?
it's a really good movie. Stars Paul Bettany.
Okay.
It's from the point of view of she's a teenager at the beginning and then starts college. It's set in the late 60s and into the early and mid 70s, and it's the character's relationship with her uncle Frank, who is played by Paul Bettany. And he is a college professor who also happens to be gay. And this is a time when that was, kind of a big deal. And they're from the South. So his family, like, he tries to hide it from his family because they don't exactly look kindly upon that sort of thing. But
What?
I know it's crazy. But I mean, Paul Bettany gives just like a fantastic performance in that movie. And it's heartwarming and heartbreaking. And it's, like I said, something I never heard of before, but I think if you're just interested in, a good drama that'll make you feel some feelings, it's worth checking out. And it's on Amazon Prime Video. So if you subscribe to that, it's there for free. And that is called Uncle Frank. What have you been up to, Cody?
I'm trying to think of other stuff I haven't mentioned on here. I guess some TV shows I haven't really talked about this summer, which is closing quickly here as we're recording this. But my kids and I have watched a lot of TV together because it's just the three of us usually for lunchtime. And so I treated them to the classic ABC show Who Done It. We watched through that, and they also watched the movie Clue with me this summer. It's the first
Now,
time
when
they've
you
seen
say
that.
treated them, do you mean
Hmm.
that you forced them to watch it, or?
They have kind of latched on to my addiction to mystery solving TV
Nice.
shows. So we watched that. We watched season one of The Mole also, and we watched the first two episodes of season two of The Mole before Netflix decided to get rid of it without warning and replace it with season three and four of The Mole, which are the celebrity seasons, which are nowhere near as good. But so we restarted and watched episode one of season three of The Mole, which features people like Stephen Baldwin amongst others. But and then
By
on
far the
top of
best Baldwin.
it, I agree. And then on top of that, that was kind of Cameron's pick that she's been watching for lunches. I usually pick wrestling that we have recorded for mine, and then Boston has been watching for his Lemony Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Events show on Netflix. I think we've made it through the first three seasons, and I think we're in the middle of season four, keeping in mind that a season is only two episodes, but it's like 12.
Really?
Yeah, it's basically like a two each. Basically, they took every book in the series and made it into a two episode
Oh, that's interesting.
story. So, and I've never read the books. I've never read the books, so it's kind of interesting, and they've kind of started to appreciate Neil Patrick Harris's versatility as he plays many characters in the show. So,
Nice.
yeah, that's been fun.
Cool. Well, so the topic of tonight's episode is listeners will be shocked to know that it pertains to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
What?
I know.
Finally,
Can you believe we would talk about that on this podcast?
finally.
We're talking about what, as of now, at least for the next week, is the most recent Disney Plus MCU live action series, which is Ms. Marvel. I think is next week is She Hulk, right?
Yeah, I think it comes out the 18th.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll probably talk about that at some point too. But tonight we're talking about Miss Marvel.
Miss Glowy Hands.
What? I mean, we'll talk about that. But Disney Plus series starring Marvel's first Muslim superhero, Kamala Khan, or Kamala, I believe it's pronounced Khan.
Kamala, yeah.
And just wanted to kind of start, as we often do with these episodes, by talking about if we had any familiarity with the character prior to the series, with like the comics or anything like that. Um, Cody, were you familiar with Kamala Khan at all?
So I knew this character slightly, but really, and I might have mentioned this on previous podcasts as well, like the bulk of my comic knowledge comes from like when I was a teenager, and that was what was happening then, and learning about the stuff that had come before that. So she's definitely like newer than any of the ages that I looked at for comic books. I knew she was, I knew she looked like in the comic books. The naming on this is interesting because the Marvel usage as a character name is kind of weird because there's like Carol Danvers, who's Captain Marvel, but like even she was like the second or third Captain Marvel in the comic books. You know, it was a guy originally, and then there was there was a Ms. Marvel in the comics also who had like a black outfit, who was tied into, if you've watched the classic animated X-Men series, there was a couple episode arc with Ms. Marvel and Rogue, who like Rogue stole Ms. Marvel's power because she was in a coma in the hospital, and drama, all of these things. But so like this is not a new name for sure, but I didn't really know the character that well. I thought in the comic she like, again, I didn't read it, but my impression was always from pictures that she was like more of a
She's
stretchy
a stretchy
superhero.
gal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's my understanding too. Which I mean the powers are something we'll talk about later, but I mean that is a good point about the naming thing because I know that that has been kind of the name itself has history in the Marvel comics, even outside of the character. I mean, all these different characters, I guess you could maybe collectively refer to them as the Marvels.
Could we? We'll see.
We'll find out. I mean, similar to you, I didn't really have much experience with the character before this series. Just from kind of reading about it and reading various things, I was kind of, I knew that she is a teenage girl. She's Pakistani Muslim. Um, Knew that her main power, from what I gather in the comics, is like stretching, kind of similar to Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that the reason that they changed that in this series is because they are planning to introduce the Fantastic Four into
Yeah.
the MCU. So just to kind of differentiate her from Reed Richards.
Well, I mean, they already killed Reed Richards, so what's the
They sure did.
spaghetti?
Uh little pop. Anyway, so I guess what were your like expectations going in then? And/or what were your overall feelings about the show?
I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I knew long before the show came out that this was going to tie into the Captain Marvel storyline in the MCU, and I knew the Marvels was supposed to include the two of them and whatever name you're giving Monica Rambeau at this point, Pulse or Photon, or I think she has a couple other names too. She's got too many names, but anyway. So I knew it was
Other
good.
Ms. Marvel,
Other Ms. Marvel, yeah, Ms. Marvel also,
Lieutenant Marvel.
Lieutenant Marvel. So it was good tying to that somehow, but I didn't really know it. I mean, I just kind of assumed this was going to be like her origin, I guess. And it is, I
Yeah,
guess.
it is for the most part.
Yeah. So that's all I really knew going into it, though. And I knew it was going to be like heavily, like you said, Pakistani and Muslim based as well. So
Yeah, and I mean that's something that Marvel has done really well, I think, is we've talked already about Shang-Chi, who was like the first Asian superhero in the MCU. We talked about Moon Knight, which is kind of based around Egypt, and one thing that they've done really well is finding, writers and filmmakers who are from the background of that character to kind of bring these things to life.
Okay.
With Ms. Marvel, the showrunners, I believe are Muslim. So kind of like just to bring the authenticity, whereas, prior to probably the last decade or so, characters from these diverse backgrounds may not have been handled very delicately. It seems like they're really doing a lot to kind of combat stereotypes and give, realistic portrayals of these people and their cultures.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially probably with Ms. Marvel and not Moon Knight, was it when you just said Shang-Chi?
Yeah.
Really, I thought those two really did a nice job of like really immersing you in the culture of that particular region or religion or area or whatever it may be. Moon Knight, I guess, somewhat did have a lot of Egyptian people in the cast, I know, but maybe didn't quite feel that way because we were following Mark slash Steven slash Jake slash Mr. Marvel slash dip 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 Cosmo the Moondog story.
Yes.
Dip it dip it dip it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think like, I mean, I guess we could start by just talking about that. Like I will admit I am a very white person, so I am not super familiar with, Pakistani or Muslim culture. But I mean, I love the way that they portray the diversity of, even the culture in this show. You kind of see like a full range of, you know, Kamala is kind of rebellious. She's very much kind of, it seems like just American, all American teenage girl, like doesn't seem super concerned about her family's history or, like she goes to mosque, but she doesn't seem to be like super into, practicing Islam.
Yeah.
Then you've got her brother, who is, more of kind of a fundamentalist Muslim. Amir is her brother. And, he is more following the religious traditions, but he is also like just an older brother and like loves his sister. And, like I love that character. I thought that he was great.
Yeah, I loved Amir.
You've got her friend Nakia who, wears the headscarf, and she is kind of like, it seems like she's kind of balancing the two to where like she is very involved in the mosque. She ends up running for the mosque board.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the fact that she is like so adamantly trying to do that and like fight for a place, as a female, like she's kind of rebellious while also celebrating the religion and the culture.
Yeah, that's a good point. I liked Nakia quite a bit as well.
But yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I will just say right up top here, as far as the cast and characters, I think this is one of my favorite Marvel properties between like movies and series.
Oof.
I'm just saying, as far as characters, like as far as the
Oof.
characters that are in and the cast that plays them, I just think like everyone is fantastic. I mean, her dad Yusuf is like possibly my favorite Marvel character of all time.
I did like her dad. Yeah, that's true.
Like I think he's fantastic. Perfect, just like warm father who also is maybe a little too dorky at times.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I like Bruno a lot, her best friend.
Bruno was pretty good.
Kind of get into that later, but again, just
Zoe
I'm not saying I'm
was
not
fun.
who.
Zoe, Instagram girl.
Yeah, Zoe I thought was fun. Like again, just like as far as the characters, I'm not saying plot, I'm not saying action, I'm just saying as far as the characters, I think this might be like my favorite, or certainly is really high up there for me. Like all of the people in the show, I just kind of want to like hang out with.
I have issues with a few of them, but
Well, let's get into that, I guess.
okay.
Well, I guess I mean before we dive into more specifics, like
Yeah.
what did you think about the show overall?
So this show is going to hold kind of a special designation of my viewing of the MCU. So for number one, this is the only thing I've ever watched from the MCU where I had captions on, which I was worried that it was going to detract from my experience, but my wife had a really hard time hearing what they were saying, so we turned them on for this. We always fight, I always win, but this time I acquiesced and it was fine.
Man, without Dave here, I didn't think we'd have any racism on this episode, but
I don't know that that's the problem,
I'm
but
just kidding.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
But
honestly, we watch almost everything with subtitles just because I have a hard time
I
hearing
just
stuff anyway.
I just
So
sit and read then. It's so bad. I was trying to like watch it like this and like but it did help, I'll say, because there were so many foreign terms that I just didn't know or religious terms that I just didn't
yeah.
know. But otherwise, I mean, I enjoyed it. We watched it in kind of a weird pattern, if I recall. I think we watched like 2 episodes and then had a little break, and then we watched the rest of them as well. So I don't know if that might have had something to do with my overall impressions on this, or I don't. I mean, there were definitely parts I liked about it. There were definitely parts I didn't like about it.
Well, let's do that. What did you like about it?
So things I really enjoyed. Well, the first episode in particular, which I thought was setting the tone for the whole show, but I don't feel like they were consistent with it, is I love that they were like manipulating the world around her to like show her thoughts and feelings and like the text pop-ups and like neon signs flashing and like it felt like you were in like a I don't even know like a disco club comic book type world,
Yeah.
which was really cool. I really liked that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought the first episode was like fantastic, and a lot of it was. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Baby Driver,
No, I haven't.
or I mean, even like Scott Pilgrim for that matter. Like, it kind of reminded me of Edgar Wright because he,
Yeah.
in at least a couple of his movies, does similar things where he'll kind of like the background is almost like a character in the thing itself.
That's a good way to put it.
Like, and I really loved, I mean, it was a great way to show Kamala's creativity. Like, you could see like kind of her ideas, like drawings coming to life. And
Mhm.
I even really loved the way that they showed like the text conversation between her and Bruno, where like instead of actually showing phone screens or whatever, you'd saw it like in the background, like it
Yeah.
just kind of became part of it.
Yeah, that was nice. It was like a fresh take on something that's been done to death, I would say, in movies and TV shows now.
Yeah. I mean, I will agree. I feel like this is where you were going, that I was a little bit disappointed that that style did not carry through to the rest of the
Yes.
episodes.
Yeah, to the point where like it did pop up once or twice in different spots, but then when it
Yeah.
popped up, it actually felt out of place again.
I mean, I think that's probably down to the fact that they had a number of different directors over the course of the series.
Okay.
Like I'm looking right now, and it looks like there's a duo who directed the first episode, and then they also directed the last episode, but all the other ones in between were directed by different people. So I'm assuming that's probably at least part of it.
I mean, there's also just, I guess, like, again, tonally, that first one's maybe a little lighter as far as like what she wants and her aspirations, and then does get a
Yeah,
little heavier with the content and the rest of the episodes.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, the first one is very much establishing her as, kind of rebellious, angsty teenage girl who doesn't really feel like she fits in anywhere, and but she has all these, artistic skills and visions, and it is kind of setting the table for the kind of more dramatic stuff that comes later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to look through my notes here. Other things I really enjoyed about this, like I liked that I wrote down it was natural how they presented like the Muslim religion and like the heritage of the family. Like it didn't feel heavy-handed, but like you were definitely steeped in a different culture if you're not from that culture, more so than other things in the MCU, which I'm sure probably brought about some of the idiots online as well that we've talked about in
Oh,
past
I'm sure.
episodes. So I liked that quite a bit. I did read, I didn't realize this, but I did read earlier today that apparently the show was screened in movie theaters in Pakistan as well. So that's kind of cool for a Disney Plus show.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Let's see what else we have here. I just have a ton of questions about this show, I guess, and then some criticisms as well. What else did you like about it?
I mean, again, the biggest thing for me was the characters. I feel like, and I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like Kamala Khan is kind of like an analog to Peter Parker. Not just because they're both high schoolers, young people trying to find their way, but ultimately, and this is my understanding from the comic as well, is that Ms. Marvel, at least for like much of her comic run, is kind of like a street level, like your friendly neighborhood superhero.
Okay.
And I feel like that's kind of what this series is setting up. Like by the end of it, she's kind of like beloved by the community.
Yeah.
Um, and I like that. Like I don't really want, that's one thing that I've actually liked about the Marvel series in general, is that they do feel kind of more focused on like smaller events.
Yes, that's true.
And I don't need everything to be like, a world threatening or universe threatening apocalypse, that they're trying to fend off.
No, I fully agree with that. I've said that in the past episodes we've done as well. But like, yeah, I'm with you. Like Hawkeye works, different things work for me more
Yeah.
because it's that small scale. Not to say like, if they pull off Endgame and Infinity War and they do it correctly, that's amazing. But yeah, I generally like the
Yeah.
smaller stuff as well.
So I mean, I like the focus. I mean, I also like the fact that it is so character based, and that will tie into also one of my big issues with the series. Um I almost, well, I'll get to that later, but I almost feel like it's character focused to the point where when they try to put like villain slash conflict in, it just doesn't work for me. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I love, I think it's Iman Vellani who plays Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
Like, I think she is just great as, like a teenage girl who is, discovers that she has these powers and is kind of like struggling with her own identity, both in terms of that and her family and her faith and like all these things. Um, and I just, yeah, I mean, I just,
Is this actress known from anything else?
I don't think so.
Is this like a
I think she was like an unknown before this.
okay? I was just curious because I didn't feel like she was the best actress, but I don't know if that's intentional because they're trying to portray like a teenager who's going through all these different things and like is just kind of lost daily in her own world, or if this is like somebody who has not acted a ton before. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm looking now. It looks like she has like one or two other. Oh, interesting. It looks like she made some sort of short film. So, long story short, this is her first real acting role.
Okay.
But I thought she was great. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's most of what I liked is the character stuff. I mean, I really liked, as I said before, I love her dad, Yusuf.
Yeah.
I thought that the scene when she's trying to convince her parents to let her go to the Avengers Con, and he comes in with his Hulk costume and and he's like so excited about it, and she like shuts it down and like says that it's like embarrassing. Like that was just so heartbreaking for me. Like because he's just like so excited about it and he's like trying so hard to be like a good dad. And
Yeah.
like, and I mean, it's again, it's like a great portrayal of like, being a teenager where like you can say these things that are just immensely hurtful that like you don't even realize what you're doing at the time. And I mean, there are a lot of moments like that. Like also in the last episode, they have that scene together where they're like on the roof
On
outside
the
her
roof. Yep.
window, and he tells her that her name means Marvel, and it's kind of like, that's obviously that's where she gets the name from, or where that like gives her the push to take the name is Marvel. But like his whole speech there about like how amazing she is and like how proud of her she is, like I think that actor is just great at like playing a dad, and
I agree.
and those moments kind of really got to me.
The dad worked for me quite a bit.
I mean, speaking of character stuff, I mentioned before that I like Bruno. I did like Bruno as her best friend, and one thing that I really liked is that much as I was shipping the two of them and hoping that she would like, realize that he was into her, the fact that he did not become a dick to her when he saw her like kissing the other guy whose name I forget.
Cameron's, I mean.
Yeah.
Or do you mean Red Dagger, her third love interest in the show?
Yes.
Okay.
No, is it Cameron?
Yeah.
Cameron?
Kamran.
Cameron. That's it.
Yep.
But no, like when Bruno sees her with Cameron, like I feel like in a lot of stories, like or even in life, you could like he would be kind of entitled and like, be like the nice guy stereotype where like if she's not giving him what he wants, he's done with her. But the fact that like at the end of the day, he obviously still cares about her as a friend, and like they just have that relationship. Like I thought that was cool. It kind of,
He's gonna stay in that friend zone as long as he can.
well, I mean, call it that if you want, but
And
I
just
like the
hope.
fact that they just like didn't go there and have him like, I feel like in other superhero things, even like he'd be like kind of the jilted would be lover and would like turn into a villain or something because he saw her with the other guy.
That's in phase 8. Just wait.
And so I like the fact that they didn't do that.
Yet.
Anyway, I'm curious to hear what your concerns
Let's talk
were.
criticism here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with who am I supposed to care about any of the villains in this show? Let's start with that. You had kind of hinted at it ahead of time. So we have the I don't even know what their official name was, the clandestine or whatever the people that were trying to get to the newer dimension.
I think they are called the clandestine, and they refer to themselves as gins.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I guess the clandestine is probably the easiest.
I didn't know. I mean, their plot line seemed like it was going to be where the show was going, and then that seemed like it was kind of fast tracked, and then suddenly it was over and the show is still going, and I was like, plus it was like, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I was supposed to feel sympathetic towards them because they were like, we're just trying to go home. We've been here forever. But then, like, I just felt like they could have figured out a way to make that work, and they
Yeah,
were like,
it
no, we're
was.
crazy killer people instead.
No, I agree. I mean, this is. I almost wish that there were no villains in this series.
So
Like,
this is my
because it doesn't
comparison
work.
to you, right? Because when we just did the MCU ranking episode, you said you didn't get the love for Ragnarok because you felt like it was 2 movies. And when I
Yeah.
watched this, I was like, there's the newer plot line, which kind of fizzles and then is done. And then there's the like damage control chasing the kids plot line, which I would have been fine with like one of the two. I don't know if
Yeah.
I needed both.
No, I agree with you. Um, yeah, I mean the newer thing specifically didn't work for me, like especially so their whole thing is they're trying to find a way home. And there's that scene in like the fourth or fifth episode. I think it's the fourth episode, maybe.
Is this the train scene?
Uh well, the scene, yeah, where they open the gateway to the newer dimension, and like the first one of the clandestine goes to go through the
Oh,
gateway
yeah.
and gets like, yeah, gets killed.
It's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And so like almost immediately they just abandon any attempt to return home, and Najma just like, who has been like evil this entire time, like just randomly sacrifices herself out of nowhere to
Yeah.
close this gateway. And like it's like the most anticlimactic thing ever.
Oh, is that what she was doing? Okay.
Yeah, she like,
I thought she was running away and like was like, screw this, I'm still doing it.
no, she like, so she somehow like she like transfers her power to what's his face? I already forgot. Kamran.
Kamran.
And like sacrifices herself in order to close the gate.
Oh, I see. I didn't get
But
that.
it's just such a weird sudden turn that like it just like it, I honestly like had to go back and watch it again because I had no idea like what had just happened.
Okay, that kind of makes more sense because it just seemed odd that she was like, I'm also going to try to get through this because I'm stronger, and that also didn't work.
Well, I mean, because Kamala is also there, like pleading with her to like. I think she is telling her like think of Kamran and like whatever. So I think the idea is that she like realizes that this is the only way to save Kamran and like other people,
Mm.
but it's really not conveyed at all. Like
No,
it's
she
just
says like I left him behind, and then I thought like was like jumping through, but I see maybe what you're saying here.
anyway. I agree that that's terrible and like it doesn't. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
well, let's talk about the whole damage control thing.
so
Like,
this is a whole. This came up in what movie? Spider-Man?
yeah, that's the
I think it's
weird
the one I'm
thing
on right
is,
now that I'm just watching.
well, so I looked at this and I think I read that it's mentioned in like Iron Man 2 or something,
Oh, okay.
but it's not actually. It's also apparently in the first in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Is that
Damage control is the reason that Vulture is like out of business
oh, okay.
because his company was originally handling all the cleanup and stuff in the wake of the Battle of New York.
Okay.
And then like damage control was created and came in and basically pushed him out. So that's why he's like got a chip on his shoulder.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I mean, I honestly like I for most of the series, I was like, am I supposed to know about damage? Like, I mean, you can put two and two together as far as like what their role is, like even just
Right.
based on what they do in this show, but it
Yeah.
does seem weird that they're apparently like seeded throughout the MCU, but not really seen in full force before.
What was the I didn't really maybe I missed something here too. It's probably just like something obvious I didn't see maybe as my viewing timeline, but why was it that Damage Control wanted Cameron so much but seemed to have no interest in Ms. Marvel?
Oh, they were trying to capture her.
They were like shooting at this other guy and like
I
they were
mean, they
like
were trying to
ignoring
capture
her.
both. Well, they were trying to capture both of them. I
Oh,
mean, I
it seemed
think
like
that
they never
they're.
tried to really get him, and like they were like, get the boy, and I don't know. It just seemed like I didn't know what he did that like made him so much more of a target than her.
I don't know. I felt like they were going after both of
Because they
them.
did say like they were looking for like a young girl earlier, right? Isn't that like why
Yeah,
they come to the mosque and stuff?
which that's another thing I did like is how they like kind of played off of the inherent racism of the fact that they're searching mosques and stuff, looking for some young people with brown complexions.
Yeah.
And I loved how Nokia kind of like threw that in their faces, like just how bad the optics of that were. Um, but yeah, I mean, the damage control thing, like I don't know who the villain of this series was. I guess it was damage control. But then like in the final episode, the big climactic thing is like damage control is trying to like, capture them at the high school. But then Kamran has this like freak out with his powers where he's like putting everyone at risk.
Yeah.
So for a second, it's like, is he now the villain? Like, and that's the other thing is throughout this entire series, I was kind of waiting for Kamran to turn into the villain.
Okay.
And like, especially in the last episode, I was like, all right, well, like by the end of this, they're gonna hint at like he's gonna be the bad guy in the next season or like the future or something. But no, like at the end of it, him and Bruno are buddy, like everyone is friendly and like they help the Red Daggers like help him escape.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, plot wise, as far as having like a villain or conflict, I do feel like it's just kind of a giant mess.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then like, just from like the teen girl in high school aspect, like I kind of you kind of talked about this earlier, but like Bruno seemed like was going to be the guy, and then was Cameron seemed to be like the cool dude that came in, and then she was all about that guy. But there was even a few moments when she was like, and I don't know if he actually had a name, if I recall. I just call him Red Dagger from the notes I have here. But like the other guy, like she was kind of giving him the eye too, and I was like, is that that kind of worked from like a teenage girl?
I mean, they're young and
You know?
hormonal.
Yep.
He's a dreamy dude who's like kicking all sorts of ass. I mean,
Right.
whatever.
Train scene.
What about it? Which
That
train scene?
the one where she's back in time and like
Yeah.
actually physically helping people. That came on and I was like, I don't know what I'm watching right now. And then it like stayed on for a very long time and was like figured it had to do something with like her family's heritage, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on in that scene. She like just goes to
You
this
mean
place.
the episode? It was like almost
Yeah,
an entire
it was a whole
episode.
episode, and my wife and I both looked at each other and were like, we don't know what's going on right now. Like this show has completely lost us with this
So
episode.
it was basically a flashback to like show you like where this all came from.
I don't feel like it was.
It was
I don't know.
it was her great grandmother. Like her great grandmother was a clandestine.
Because it was the story they kept telling of like, we don't know what happened to her that night that we got
Yeah,
split up at the what they call it, the separation, or not that, but
the
something.
partition.
Partition. There you go.
Yeah, it was that story. But yeah, it was her great grandmother who was a clandestine who wanted to get away from the other clandestines because they were dicks, presumably.
Was that like how that episode started? Was like her back there? Like
I believe
it was very weirdly abrupt. Like she was
I
back in the past, and I was like, what just happened? Like, did we miss something? Like we actually rewound to check what we had missed, and there was nothing we had missed.
yeah, I didn't I actually didn't get this part until I was like rereading some recaps, but apparently Najma, who is
Crazy
Kamran's
lady.
mom,
Yeah.
like the evil lady, she like stabs Kamala's bangle with a dagger or something. And apparently somehow that is what triggers her to go back in time.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't get that at all.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean that episode is basically like showing it's the entire point of the episode is to show us her great grandmother's story, you know, the fact that she was a clandestine and meets a kindly earthman and settles down and has a family, and they're kind of living peacefully until Najma finds her.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. The episode opens with like two whole new characters, right?
Yeah,
And then we didn't see Miss Marvel till later in the episode.
yeah, you have
That's what it was.
yeah, so you have Kamala's very attractive great grandmother and her very attractive great grandfather.
There you go.
And when two very attractive people find each other on screen,
Okay.
they're gonna love each other very much.
Okay.
Yeah, so they kind of settle down, and then like as partition is starting to happen, Najma finds the great grandmother and is trying to get her to come back or to like help her find a way back to the newer dimension.
Lure.
Obviously she doesn't want to do that because she wants nothing to do with the other dickheads, and she has this family. So they end up like when partition is hardcore going down and everyone has to take trains to GTFO. You know, she's trying to get out of there with her family, and Najma is pursuing her. The other thing in the episode is that we see that Kamala is part of her own family history because she is the one who created the stars to guide her infant grandmother to safety.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Which is weird, but I'm kind of a sucker for like a time travel loop like that where, you know, someone was always meant to go back and do something.
Are you Dave Mansell right now? What's happening?
No, I have a feeling Dave Mansell probably did not like the show as much as I did.
Yeah, that's
Did we get any notes from Dave?
Oh, I don't think we ever did get any notes from Dave. He was supposed to send us some, and I
Weak.
don't think he did, but I know he loves time travel, so I'm curious how that would have worked with him.
Yeah. Anyway, it's messy.
More criticism. The mom.
What about her?
She like didn't let her do anything. You can't do this, you can't go here, you got to be home by this time. And then like as soon as she finds out that she had been sneaking out and like was this superhero, she's like, we're all so proud of you. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like I've listened to a couple of podcasts talking about this series, and a lot of people say that they like love the mom. And like I liked her at the end of the series, like when she was down with everything, but I agree that that turn was pretty abrupt. Like she was very kind of overbearing, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, that's cool."
It reminded me a lot, actually, of the mom from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I could see that, yeah.
Like, kind of came around on, like, very suddenly, like, oh, my daughter's cool. I get it now because my parents are like, I
I
see my
mean,
parents again
but
after a long time, and now I know.
at least in that movie, we see the journey that she's gone on.
Yes.
Like, I don't, it's not really abrupt. Like, here it is like, I didn't really follow like what made that transition happen.
Yeah, here it was like I saw my mom that I've been avoiding, photograph, hee hee, titter titter, and I'm cool with my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. I do agree with that.
Um, that's really most of my criticism. A few of the characters I just thought were kind of bland. Like, I don't know, the Cameron guy was kind of seemed kind of bland to me, and I guess the Red Dagger guy wasn't in there very much, but he seemed kind of bland also. I was kind of hit or miss on the lead girl, actually, also a little bit.
Well, you're wrong about that.
Yeah, that's fine. It's an interestingly divided public out there because I think this ad I looked up and has like a, I want to say like a 98 or 90 or something really really high on
Yeah, I think
Rotten
it's
Tomatoes.
pretty well reviewed overall.
But the all of the detractors on this one are like comparing it to like a young kids TV show, which I get.
See, I don't get that. Like, I mean, to an extent, like I've heard that criticism that it feels that like people are saying like who is the audience because it feels like it skews so young.
Yep.
And I mean, it definitely has like a youthful energy to it, but at the same time, like, were you never a teenager?
No.
Like, it doesn't. It's not like a children's show. It's a show that's about teenagers, and I think captures the feeling of that pretty well. Like, with the, I mean, are those same people like making that same criticism about like Spider-Man: Homecoming? Like, to me, it has kind of a similar energy.
I guess it does have kind of a similar energy. I guess maybe it's, if kind of goes back to the point I said earlier of like, if you think Aman Milani is good at playing like a confused teenager or is just a confused teenage actor, like those are two
Why
different
not
things.
both?
Well, because that's the issue I think the other people are having. Like, I found the Bruno character particularly endearing. I don't know that I love that, but I don't know if I would said push come to shove he's a great actor, but he's also super young, so there's
Yeah,
that. And I mentioned just a couple of the other people too were kind of same thing. Like,
I thought
I'm
they were all great.
yeah, you do think they're all great. So, um,
Here's a
yeah,
question. Here's a
yeah,
question for you.
yes. Can we get a
Do
solo
you?
show with just Amir? I don't know, maybe.
I mean, I would watch that.
Yeah, me too.
That would be great. Um, as far as order of events, do you want to rate and rank this and then talk about possible future implications? Or do you want to talk about possible future implications first and then rank and rate?
Um, I don't care. You have a preference? Would you rather break tradition and do it the other way tonight? I just
Let's
have a lot
switch
of
it around.
questions and stuff.
Oh,
So,
what are your
well,
questions
I mean, they might relate to
about the
future stuff as
things?
well. So we
Well,
can
let's
we can rank it up if you want.
let's rank it up first. Why not?
Let's do it. I haven't even put a number on this yet. I gotta think. Do you know your number?
No, I actually haven't put a number on it either. I have my ranking of the series, but I don't I don't have an. You know what? All right, I've got one.
Are you saying you have a ranking like compared to the other shows?
Yeah.
Oh crap! I definitely don't have
Oh,
that.
Cody,
Is
come
that a real thing
on.
I have to
I thought
do?
we were doing that.
Oh well, I'll do that in the background here.
I've just got. I mean, I'm just doing the 6 live action Disney Plus MCU shows.
Okay, do they have to be in order, or can I just say which ones I like better, which ones I like worse?
I mean, I would prefer a ranking 1 through 6.
Why do you do
I can
this
do
to me?
mine first if you want.
All right.
All right, so I've got, and I mean, we already did a ranking for Moon Knight anyway, so you could just. I pulled that up
I
and
kept those notes, but I reused the same sheet every week. So,
well, number 6 for me is still Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
because it's a steaming pile of crap.
It's just a terrible experience. As we mentioned last time we ranked these, there's one scene that's like amazing, which I guess they've edited now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard they toned that down a little bit. But aside from that, it's pointless. Number 5, I have Moon Knight, which I enjoyed overall, but
Yeah, I thought you were pretty high on that one.
it's kind of messy. Number 4, I've got WandaVision, which it made me care about 2 characters I never cared about before, but I, especially towards the end, I thought things got a little bit messy. Number 3, I've got Miss Marvel. I just had a great time with it. Like I just love these characters. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen in terms of the overall plot, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm kind of excited to see, what happens in the future with Ms. Marvel and, the other characters from this.
Okay.
Number 2, I have Hawkeye,
Mm.
which still surprises me because I historically do not like Jeremy Renner at all. But this series both made me like him and care about the character. And honestly, I think Hawkeye might be the most consistent of all the MCU shows in terms of quality.
Yes.
Like I feel like start to finish, it's, I never felt like it really like lagged or like nothing really didn't make sense.
I mean, it's probably also the most linear besides Winter
Yeah, well,
Soldier
that's
as well.
true too.
So
Yeah, it is
it's
kind
harder
of
to mess that up, I
very,
think.
yeah. But the number 1 that leaves me with Loki, which I know you are not as high on, but I just
Maybe I'll
really love that
surprise you.
series. Like, again, I've always enjoyed the Loki character, but I've never been as crazy about him as most other people seem to be.
That's because you have a penis.
But I mean, that's probably part of it.
Yep.
But I like the timey wiminess of that series, all the weird, like,
WandaVision's the timey-wimey show. What are you talking about?
There's all the different parallel stuff, and Owen Wilson was great.
It does have Owen Wilson.
And yeah, I mean, I think it had the strongest finale for me of any of the MCU series as well, with Jonathan Majors as Kang. And
you're comparing the splitting of the multiverse to be like a more important event than like hitting Kingpin with a car. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm
okay,
just saying.
that's fair.
Anyway, Loki number 1, but for me, Miss Marvel slots in at number 3, which is not too shabby.
Are you giving it a number rating also, or is it just that?
I will give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, mine might have changed because I just made this list last week when you told me to work on this, and totally not as you were just talking. So my number 6 is Winter Soldier because that's where that lives. Number 5 is Ms. Marvel.
Whoa.
Yep. I just thought it was messy and I didn't care as much about some parts of it as I hoped to. Now, number 4 might have gone down on my list. I don't recall this. I have WandaVision at number 4, which I love the sitcominess of this still, probably more than other people that watched it, I'm sure. But it, if you look at it, it's a very, very small plot if you actually look at what's going on here. So that's going to be a little lower. And number 3, for this iteration at least, I have Moon Knight with all the things we covered in the podcast on that. And then number 2, then I have Loki. It's probably moving up in importance because we're getting closer to the Kang.
Yeah, I feel like last time you definitely had Loki lower.
Yeah, it might have been 3 or maybe even 4. I don't know. And then I have Hawkeye number 1 still. I know that was my number 1 then, which is, who doesn't love a good Christmas murder mystery? That's the whole thing. Come on.
That's true.
That's the thing. And I did hear the swordman character from Hawkeye is coming back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, somewhere in the MCU. So he may yet become his comic book character of the swordsman. We'll see.
Ooh, maybe he'll have a duel with Jon Snow.
Maybe. Maybe. So I'll give it an overall of 6.
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible. I had fun with it, but
I feel like Dave would probably give it a 2.
hard to say with him. He swings both ways.
Oh, well, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk
Let's get to the
about,
juicy stuff.
yeah. So a couple of things kind of come up in this series at the end.
Yeah.
One is almost, I mean, it's not quite a throwaway, but like in the last episode, after all the shit has gone down, Bruno has been analyzing Kamala's DNA and says that he believes her powers are due to the fact that she has a mutation in her genes.
Which, P.S., don't you love that the kid from the downstairs deli is the one who's able to first identify a mutation in the MCU?
Hey, Bruno's a genius, so you leave him alone.
Sure,
We
sure
also
he is.
we also get a little bit of the main riff from the X-Men animated series theme song as he says that.
Oh, really?
I
didn't even catch that.
Yeah, just to really hammer it home, as he says she's got a mutation, you get
For real?
yes. Go back and watch it.
Did not catch that at all.
That is 100% accurate.
Wow. So they've used that in a movie and a TV show now?
Yep.
They're really plugging the Disney Plus here, huh?
So this is, I mean, this is the first time we get mention of mutants in the official main MCU timeline, at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
pretty
technically, they actually did a similar thing in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but that was a different universe. So, but I mean, this obviously has huge implications. I mean, we know that a few years ago now, Disney bought Fox, which finally gives them the rights to introduce the X-Men and mutants into the MCU. For the longest time, they actually could not even say the word mutant in the MCU because of weird rights issues.
Yeah.
So I mean, what were your feelings about that? Like the fact that they threw that in this show?
I mean, I was excited to see that mentioned in the MCU. Seemed like kind of a not I would have expected it at this point to have it popped up in the MCU of all places, like a post-credit scene in Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus.
Well, I feel like not only the placement of it, well, it's not a post-credit scene.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's like the end of it's towards the end of like the actual main part of the episode.
Okay.
But it's weird to me both in terms of the placement because it's not like in, a big movie or anything, but also in terms of the timing with like what we know is coming up in the MCU. Because we have like through phase 6 laid out for us.
Yep.
And presume like there's nothing that obviously says mutants, at least as far as my knowledge goes.
No.
Like we're getting like more scroll stuff. We're getting like Secret Wars, Secret Invasion. We're getting the whole multiverse thing with King. We're getting Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Like these are the big things that we know of.
Yep.
So it seems weird. Like this is setting up mutants in the MCU. It's weird that they would do this, like, at least from what we know now, like looking forward from here, it feels like we're probably at least 4 or 5 years out from actually getting like an X-Men movie or, some major mutant focused property.
Yeah, I'm really curious how they're going to begin to seed the MCU with X-Men characters because they really, I mean, they've done some leaps of logic already here with like the way they presented some things in the MCU, but I don't think they can just be like, by the way, here's this secret school upstate New York that has all these mutants at it we didn't tell you about. So it seems like they're going to slowly drop in like a Storm here, or a Wolverine here, or Jean Grey, or Cyclops, or whoever.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it's possible that we do start to see some of those characters just like within the movies that have already been announced in the next couple of years?
I don't think it'd be too surprising.
I mean, I would assume just probably as cameos, but just to kind of lay the groundwork a little bit.
Yeah, Bruno's going to become the Beast.
Actually, Bruno that
fits pretty well.
Yeah, that would work. He's a smart man.
Yeah. No, that was exciting. but weird placement-y issues. I had other questions here too, like so can we talk about the Bengals for a second, because I got a lot of stuff on that.
Sure.
So we got this bangle that gives her powers that she finds, like, was who her grandma's, yada yada. And like one, I don't
It was her
necessarily,
great
her
grandma's and
great
then her
grandma's.
grandma's.
Okay. I don't know how, I don't think they explain in the TV show itself like how that works at all, do they?
No.
So I was like,
Well, so Bruno speculates in either the first or second episode that the bangle is like the bangle itself does not give her the power, but it like unlocks the power that she already had.
okay.
So that's where the mutation thing comes into it. Is that like she has this mutation and the bangle somehow like unlocks a power that the mutation gives her?
So there's a scene in, I don't even know which episode it's in, but where they find the bangle and it's in this tomb in like, is it, I don't even know where it's at, some tomb. And they're like, it's the clandestine, right, who pulled the
Yeah.
bangle off the.
Yeah.
So I was reading about this today a little bit too, and like I didn't catch half this crap. So they pull the bangle off this dead arm, which I did not even, probably due to colorblind issues, realize was blue.
Sure was.
And so they're figuring, best
Cree.
assumption that it's Kree, yeah, which that ties into like that's a link to Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And then I also did not see until I was looking at this today that apparently the overhead shot when they said like the British are coming or whoever, they have the inscription of the 10 rings on the floor of the room. Like they're sitting on a giant inscription of
Ooh,
the
I didn't
logo
catch
of the 10
that.
rings.
I mean,
So
that connection is something I was gonna bring up anyway.
I didn't catch that, and that's then like kind of weird because then are they, I don't even know what to do with that. Like the career involved with the 10 rings. I don't know what, I don't even know what to do with that. And then the same article I was reading said like they mentioned the clandestine
Ooh,
mentioned,
that would make sense
what's that?
in a way. Well, no, because like I do feel like we can assume maybe that the bangle is the thing that is giving off the signal that they're detecting in the post-credit sequence for Shang-Chi. Remember in the post-credit sequence, she's talking to like there's Wong and Bruce Banner.
Didn't it say the 10 rings were sending a signal out to something?
Oh, maybe that was it. But there is a signal being transmitted. My point is, I would assume that the bangle and the 10 rings are talking to each other.
That's
Like
interesting.
I think they're probably going to set it up that they're like both of Kree origin,
I mean, that could work, I
or at
guess.
least that they're connected in some way.
Yeah. I don't know. Like that's crazy quick look they do there to look at that logo on the floor, though. I'd have never caught that. So then
Oh wow, yeah.
they also mentioned in the episode that clandestine say the British had already looted the room, so we're looking for the second bangle, which I expected to come out at some point during the show. It did not. But then they had speculated in the same article here that if it was looted by the British, it probably would have ended up in a British museum, which would then tie the story also to Moon Knight, Stephen Grant, and or Cersei or Dane Whitman, who also worked in the British Museum
Yeah. Jon
facility.
Snow.
So you got like Shang-Chi, the Eternals, Moon Knight, and Captain Marvel, really, in Guardians of the Galaxy, because we saw the Kree first, all tied into this one little throwaway scene, kind of. Seems like, I don't know if that's all Easter eggs or what, but
They're
I mean,
planting the seeds, buddy.
they really deliberately put that in there, but the average viewer just doesn't catch that stuff. So it's so strange how they do some of this sometimes.
I mean, I feel like they've always done that throughout the entire history of the MCU, though.
I guess so. I guess those people just watch the movies for watching the movies, hey? And then I
Yes.
had one more here on the bands. This was another article. Yes, maybe it's the same one. Let's see. Let me go. No, it's a different article here. So they said the bands that she has look a lot like something from the comics called the Quantum Bands. which I confess I had not even heard of as a thing. But this is there's a picture on a website. They look almost exactly alike.
You talking about the Bengals
Yeah,
or
the bangles that she had look a lot like something called the quantum bands from the comics, which is there's another hero called Quasar who has these bands on, and he's just like this. I always thought he was like this pretty boy space dude, but apparently there's yet another like ancient entity called Eon, and he grants these bangles to somebody to be the protector of the universe. So
ooh.
they're speculating on this other website I was on that they basically either won't ever use this character or just like retconned this guy's power source and future role in the universe to like maybe be Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan, sorry. She's not the vice president. She's actually just a superhero. But isn't the vice president a superhero also?
Uh
Especially in the
well,
last couple of weeks.
womp womp.
Womp womp.
That's interesting though.
Yeah, so those are really my main questions I had. And then the last one I just was wondering about was like, what does the dynamic of the Marvels movie look like? Because you have Brie Larson and then Tiana Harris, or Paris, I would say that wrong. And then you have like this new girl who's considerably younger than them. So is this just gonna be like a buddy flick of like whatever, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, so speaking of the actual post credit scene, we
Yes.
see
Sorry, I did leave out that question.
Kamala is in her room and the bangle starts flashing, and all of a sudden there's like it looks like kind of like a whirl effect or something, and we see she has somehow switched places with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel.
I have a lot of questions for that.
Or okay, so Captain Marvel appears where she was. We don't exactly know what happened. I've heard various places that they have switched places, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how we know that. But whatever the case, we see this, thing happen, and then all of a sudden Carol Danvers is there where Kamala Khan had been,
Yeah.
which is obviously setting up the Marvels where they're both going to appear, but we don't really know what happens there.
When does that movie come out? Is that a 2023?
Yeah, it's
Early?
next year.
Early?
I think early like spring or summer.
Okay. That doesn't see, yeah. Like, I don't know. Some of these post credits they do, you're like, you can't leave that dangling too long.
It is July 28th
Oh,
of 2023, so that's
okay.
almost a year. Well, that is a year between when this happened on the series and when it's coming out.
Yeah. I yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, it seems like they switched spots, but I have no idea why that would make them do that. Like that's the part I have the bigger question about.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean,
Like Captain Marvel's not even powered by anything Kree. Like she had the Power Stone.
yeah, that's true.
Like I don't get the connection other than
I mean,
she
she
lived
is
with the Kree.
connected to the Kree, though.
It's weird.
I mean, it would make sense. I'm sure it will somehow relate to the whole like Kree origin of the Bengal and Captain Marvel's Kree history.
I'm sure whatever happens, they won't mention Tiamat sticking out from the ocean still. All right, let's just
Probably not. I mean, as far as the question you'd asked before, I do think the question of what the dynamic will be in the movie is a good one, because we do have these two grown ass women and then this teenager. I mean, it could be fun because Kamala is like a giant Captain Marvel fangirl.
yeah.
So I am curious to see how they play that. Like, is she gonna just annoy the hell out of the other two, or
I mean, that's like Hawkeye and what's her face, Kate Bishop.
yeah? I mean, I would assume that there is probably going to be some of that, but then I would assume that there is also, like with Hawkeye, going to be like a mentor mentee relationship.
Honestly, I'm even intrigued how Monica Rambeau's going to be in the show
Yeah,
too. Like,
that's true.
curious to see her dynamic with Captain Marvel as well. I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean they have the history with her mom, and
Yeah,
yeah,
this is like it's weird, weird part in the MCU because I like that. I feel like that plot line's just going to sit for a year
yeah, it is kind of
while
strange.
all of this stuff's happening, right? So you're like,
Well, I mean this that line of thought is what, like, that makes me feel like they can't wait 5 years to introduce other mutant characters. Like the fact that they planted that now, it feels like they have to start paying that off. I
yeah.
mean, it already, like you're saying, it feels like it's already a long time to like wait a year to start like paying this off.
I mean, honestly, I'm really
So
curious. This is like jumping way ahead, but like if we get to any sort of like um dimension is not the right word, universe, multiverse, I guess. I guess it's called the universe. Like the universes like battle each other, who could be deposited here in ours, like, and they could use that to, but technically that's an incursion, which they've already stated is a bad thing. But like they
yeah,
could they could use that to like drop Deadpool or the X-Men or like anybody into our universe also. So I don't know.
that's how we get Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine.
Huge Jackman.
Huge Jackman. Uh
Yes, indeed.
well, I mean, I guess only time will tell on all these questions.
It's all a big joke. Ryan Reynolds will never get Deadpool 3. Ha ha ha.
Womp womp womp.
That's true. He'll be playing Professor X someday.
I did
Yeah.
on
What
a
else you got?
random note, but I didn't know that this was a thing. Are you familiar with the are they called Marvel Legends, I think?
The toys?
No, what is it called? Yeah, it is Marvel Legends. I didn't realize that on Disney Plus, every time there's a new MCU movie or show about to come out, they have a series on there called Marvel Legends, which is basically a primer of everything you need to know before
Like a
that thing comes
backgroundy
out.
show? I had heard about that, but I've never watched any of them.
Which I know, like, one of our friends and occasional co-hosts has said that one of his issues with the MCU at this point is that everything is so connected and it's hard to, you have to have watched everything in order to, appreciate the new stuff coming out. But I guess this is an answer to that, at least to some extent, is that Disney is actually doing some of that homework for you and like putting together these packages to kind of help get you up to speed
Hmm.
on everything you need to know about a specific character. Like I know they put one about Thor out before Love and Thunder came out, and I just saw earlier today there's actually one about Hulk, which is in preparation for She-Hulk, which comes out next week.
Oh yeah, okay.
So just kind of an FYI for any listeners out there, that's something to keep in mind if you also feel overwhelmed by all the MCU stuff and you're not necessarily up to speed. Disney Plus has a way for you to get caught up.
There is a way.
There is a way. Anyway, I think that might just about do it.
Yeah. There we go. So there you go. Thanks, Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier, for not making this the worst show.
Uh Thanks,
what was your number five
Captain
again?
America, Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker.
See, the difference between John Walker and Johnny Walker is they're both kind of shitty, but I can at least appreciate Johnny Walker on occasion.
Ah, yes.
My number 5 was Moon Knight.
But they're both White Walkers. Kid Harington.
Womp womp. It's true.
Just kidding, Icarus. Kid Icarus. Nintendo. Mario.
Friends
Occasionally.
occasionally
No, 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 no,
not
no, no.
disagree. See.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.